Did you know? While Tetris was created in 1984, creator Alexei Pajitnov hardly received any money from the game until 1996. At the time of Tetris' creation, Pajitnov was an artificial intelligence researcher working for the Society Academy of Sciences, one of the few Soviet organizations with contact to the outside world. His job was to test the capabilities of hardware sent to the Academy, which he'd do by writing simple programs for them. Having always loved puzzles, Pajitnov wanted to make a game using pentaminos, geometric shapes formed by fitting exactly 5 squares edge to edge in various combinations. Pentaminos have 12 possible arrangements, which Pajitnov eventually decided was too convoluted for a puzzle game. He decided to use tetraminos instead, which only have 7 possible arrangements. The game was initially programmed for use on the Russian Electronica 60. Letters were used to form the shapes as the computer didn't feature conventional graphics. Once Tetris' row-deleting mechanic was implemented, Pajitnov found himself too addicted to his own game to finish it. His original build only featured a score system and there were no levels. Prior to creating Tetris, Pajitnov and his partners at the time planned to make about a dozen computer games for the PC and sell them together in one system they called a computer fun fair. However, due to the laws in the Soviet Union, attempting to make private sales of a product was a dangerous endeavor. Because they couldn't sell the games, they ended up giving them out for free. But the only game which garnered much interest was Tetris. Its name was a portmanteau of the Greek prefix tetra, meaning 4, and Pajitnov's favorite sport, tennis. The PC version made its way to Hungary, where it was discovered by Andromeda Software Limited. In 1986, Pajitnov gave the rights of Tetris to the Perestroika movement in Russia for 10 years. At some point in 1987, Andromeda allegedly obtained copyright licensing of Tetris for home computer systems, but the Soviet government hadn't begun marketing the rights until 1988. Video game licensor Hank Rogers discovered Tetris at the 1988 Computer Electronics Show, and after which he licensed it for as many systems as possible through the American company Spectrum Holobyte. As it turns out, Holobyte's parent company, Mirrorsoft, had already given some of the licensing rights to Atari, rights Rogers thought he'd obtained. The fate of Andromeda is unclear, but the version released for PC by Spectrum Holobyte, which legally obtained the licensing rights, mentions Andromeda in the opening message. Eager to cut through the confusion and secure rights to the console and handheld versions, Rogers went to Moscow to get things settled. He was able to meet with Elektronorg Technica, the Soviet bureau which handled the export of software. They told Rogers they'd never given the rights to anybody at this point, though it's unclear whether they meant the console rights or any rights at all. Regardless, he was able to seal the deal. He acquired the rights, then made a deal with Nintendo to bundle Tetris with the Game Boy. The Game Boy version alone would go on to sell 35 million copies. In 1996, the rights to Tetris reverted back to Pajitnov, who had moved to the United States 5 years prior. He would finally be able to make some money off the game he invented. Pajitnov and Rogers established the Tetris Company, which combined copyright registrations for Tetris products in the US with trademarks in countries the world over. Not only did the Tetris Company set up to thwart all illegal clones of Tetris, they also established what is referred to as the Tetris Guideline. While the Tetris Guideline is not currently publicly available, the specifications ensure all Tetris games from 2001 onwards appear similar in form, with standard Tetris modes adhering to the guideline. As far as the community has diagnosed, this includes a couple of interesting things. One guideline dictates the color of each piece. The I must be cyan, the O yellow, the T purple, the S green, the Z red, the J blue, and the L orange. This rule began with Tetris Worlds and has carried over ever since. To cut down on players having to relearn major aspects of the game's system, part of Tetris' guideline also includes the super rotation system. This defines the axis on which each tetramino spins, and how it reacts to colliding with a wall. Another mandatory inclusion is the song commonly referred to as Type A, which played during the A-type mode in the Game Boy version of Tetris. This song is a version of the Russian folk song Korobeniki, and was arranged by Hirokazu Tanaka. The Tetris Company decided to use this track despite Pajitnov's initial negative reaction to its inclusion in the Spectrum Holobyte version of the game. It was very embarrassing for me. When kids of the world hear these pieces of music, they start screaming, "Tetris, Tetris." That's not very good for Russian culture. Tetris has also been a surprisingly relevant player in the realm of psychology. In 1991, Dr. Richard Ayer, a professor at the University of California's Department of Psychiatry and Human Behavior, scanned people's brains while they played Tetris. The purpose of the experiment was to evaluate whether the brain requires more energy as the game gets harder and faster. The results indicated that the opposite was true. When people first start playing Tetris, their glucose metabolic rates, or GMRs, skyrocket, meaning the brain is using lots of energy. But after playing daily for several weeks, players' GMRs return to normal. but their performance had increased 7-fold in some cases. A study conducted in 2009 by an Oxford University research group evaluated the effects of Tetris on victims of post-traumatic stress disorder. In instances of PTSD, flashbacks usually determine the severity of the symptoms experienced, as they are unpredictable and visceral stressors that can make other symptoms worse. The study involved having subjects answer trivia questions, do nothing specific, or play Tetris within 6 hours of watching a disturbing film. A week later, those who played Tetris reported less flashbacks of the film than the other groups. The hypothesis put forth by researchers is that the visual spatial exercise of playing demanding games such as Tetris is somehow protecting the brain from revisiting traumatic events as often. The reasons for this are still undetermined, but the results have been duplicated enough to indicate something worthy of further investigation. A team from the Research Institute of McGill University Health Center tested the effects of Tetris on people with adult amblyopia, commonly referred to as lazy eye. Amblyopia specifically affects one eye, resulting in the reception of unclear images from that eye. The brain considers the images from this eye to be faulty, and over time the unaffected eye hinders the impaired eye from improving. Regarding the use of Tetris, senior authority of the study, Dr. Robert Hess, said, "The key to improving vision for adults was to set up conditions that would enable the two eyes to cooperate for the first time in a given task. Their testing environment included head-mounted goggles that displayed a different image to each eye. One eye saw the falling objects, the other saw the objects on the ground. The patients who participated in the test experienced significant improvements after only 2 weeks." Before you go, we'd like you to vote on what you want to see covered in a future video. A video on South Park games or a video on Simpsons games. You can also vote by leaving a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe for more facts and trivia. And if you want to watch another video, why not check out my video on the Game Boy camera? Because we kind of talked about some Game Boy related things today, right? Cool, great, have a good time, and have a good day. Thanks for watching, bye!